by my group in transportation as well as engineering, and we have a whole capital plan that goes to committee, council for approval before we begin those works. And then work with the board office on comms, and we let everyone know what we're doing through PICs, or we're work starting so that we can make everybody aware. Last slide. So with regards to road safety matters, there are a number of ways to get to transportation. So we can log the issue and we can review and assess and provide feedback. You again can go through Councillor Spatafora's office and Christine and or Sam. You can go to 905-546-CITY. Every request again is sent to us, it's logged and tracked. Or you can go directly to traffic ops at hamilton.ca. That's directly into the transportation traffic group, traffic operations, where again everything is logged and assessed, and again we assess it and we implement what we can implement or provide responses back. So I'm now going to pass it over to Brian Collingworth. He's going to provide updates regarding parking and a few other things.
Great. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Transportation Planning and Parking, and Councillor Spatafora and Carolyn asked me to be here tonight because some of the issues in the letter from the residents dealt with things like parking and parking enforcement and school crossing guards. Just a little bit, same as Carolyn, provide a little bit of a background on kind of the work that our groups do because I think it informs the two-way dialogue. We love to hear issues and then talk about solutions. So just under our portfolio, our group looks after what we call development reviews. So when there's a new development, be it a condo, an apartment, or a new school, our group looks at it, looks at the traffic implications, tries to come up with some mitigation measures. We're starting to look a lot more closely at things like pedestrian pathways and making sure that there's as many opportunities for people to not drive to and from new developments as possible, but recognizing that they still will. We also have a small group that liaises with the schools. It's called the Active and Safe Routes to School group. They look at more of the softer measures. I understand in Riddell there was a bike, they call it a bike pilot a couple of years ago, so our group was involved in that. On the parking side of things, our group looks after everything related to parking regulations, on-street, off-street, so things like residential parking, one-side versus two-side parking. Some of the issues raised in already have been things like corner clearances, so we look at how those are assigned. Basically anything to do with the operations of parking and parking bylaws. We also look after parking enforcement. So there's a significant team that's out there on a daily basis. We actually love it when folks call or email us to request enforcement because it helps us kind of get more of a understanding of what's happening on the ground, and it makes it a lot easier when we say, well, the residents called us, so that's why we're enforcing parking, as opposed to us just being a bad guy. That group, the parking group also looks after a school crossing guard, the school crossing guard program. So we have about 265 crossing guards throughout the city. One of them, for example, as you know, is at Cranbrook and Garrow. I often try and get out to 4 or 5 locations throughout the year and just talk to the guards because they really provide on-the-ground information. And the guard was out there just happened to be at Garrow and Cranbrook this year, and he was telling me about people not stopping at the intersections, parking too close to the intersections, somewhat chaotic. So they're a great source of information. And I think that's it. Our group does a few other things, but those are the main things for this discussion, and we're very much looking forward to the discussion.
Anyways, thank you both for the information. This is probably the time everybody's been waiting for, where we can grill staff and myself as to the work job we're doing in the neighborhood. But yes, this is the time to ask the questions. All I ask is you're respectful. Everybody talks at one time, so sorry. talk one at a time so that the director can answer each person's question clearly, so you get the answer you're looking for. The one thing I will say, I know the reaction to the not warranted, and you can ask Christine, who does the majority of the communication between staff, and I have the same reaction when it comes back. It was not warranted. How can it not be warranted? So I think when you ask those questions, the director can get into a little more detail as to, you know, how many times they go out. I know she mentioned some things quickly, but how many times they go out, when they go out, what they're looking for, and other options besides not being warranted by the standards that we follow when we do these reviews for speed cushions. So it's not the only option. Just because it's not warranted doesn't mean we can't get them. But I think, you know, there has to be some work from the community as well in that regard. There's a new.
So we can talk a little bit about the process. So we get a lot of requests for speed cushions. We don't put speed cushions for everyone's awareness on major arterials, major collectors, because we're trying to move a lot of traffic and a lot of pedestrians and cyclists. We don't put them on there for many reasons. However, in residential areas, we do put speed cushions. When a request is received, again, we go out and we do our due diligence and we confirm what's happening on the roadway. We consult back with the ward office and or the resident on the results of our finding. If something is warranted, that means, yes, there was a speeding matter happening on the roadway. We will then work on a whole host of different things that we need to do out there with regards to trying to control the speeding on the roadway. And it's not always a speed cushion. The speed cushion, again, is one tool and tool. It's widely adopted, it's widely used because it does slow down a lot of people that are on roadways. So in the case where it's warranted, so it's needed, we put it into our work plan and we implement it. It's something we add in. We do hundreds of these a year. I think we're up to almost 250 right now annually, the speed cushions for the city council that we're putting in. So there's a lot of behind the scenes assessing, again, consultation, then going out to find locations to place them. We're dealing with putting them in front of residents' house that may not want them. So there's coordination and consultation. And then we hire a consultant that comes out and we put them out. The old process is we put them out twice a year. We had a spring implementation and we had a fall implementation. And at the end of 2024, a report was sent forward that we're moving into a continuous all year round implementation. So we're not batching them any further. So when we get a request, we assess it, contractor will go out if they're needed, and they will be put in. If something is not needed, so we go out there and we come back following industry standard. We're guided by policy, we're guided by standard, we're guided by TAC guidelines, we're guided by MTO minimum maintenance standards. We follow guidelines. This is not us making decisions, it's not us guessing. It is us following policy, guideline, industry standard. Many may not agree with the industry standard. I appreciate that. But that's what we follow. That's what's been approved by council. And we do have a traffic calming policy that Councillor Spadafora is going to assist with through Public Works this Q4, that we're going to be bringing back our traffic calming policy that's going to outline all these tools in the toolkit, the standards we follow, what levels we follow, and if there's any changes, council will guide us. So that's coming this year. If something is not warranted, for example, a speed cushion, we communicate that. However, it doesn't mean there's nothing that we can do on the street. We'll come back with other provisions. We can talk about a speed display board. We can talk about enhanced pavement markings. We can talk about putting down bike lanes in the future, protecting bike lanes, or we can work with the ward office. And the new process is that if it's not warranted and the community wants it, the councillor's office can work with the community to get a petition, 50+1, and if we get the 50+1, so there is the support of the community for the speed cushion when it's not warranted, we will put it in working with the ward office. And you may ask, why do we need a petition? The reason is we have had several challenges with a lot of individuals on the street not wanting a speed cushion, a lot of individuals who want a speed cushion, and then why is it on here if it's not needed and it's in front of my house. So the time, the involvement of staff, where I need them prioritized on the arterials, the collectors, the fatalities, serious injuries are happening, that's where we want to be prioritizing time. And based on statistics, not that there aren't things happening in the residential neighborhood, because they are, They equate to 70% of what the stats show. The remainder are on the bigger roads. And we need to turn our attention, obviously, and have staff resources to be dealing with what we're dealing with on those road numbers. So there is a process in place. So if something is not warranted, we're not saying it's not needed. What we're saying is we need to continue the dialogue with the ward office and come up with other ideas to deal with how we want to deal with the matter that we're hearing about based on the industry standard and our findings. So I thought I would just provide that.
And just to confirm, 50 plus 1 is for the people that live on the street for the street homeless.
Yes, it's 50 plus 1 for those that live on the street, and if it's in an area, for example, a school, where we can't be petitioning, and it was actually in collaboration with Councillor Spatafor himself, we have selected areas that we can work outside of the 50 plus 1 petition because of those sensitive areas, and work to put in a speed cushion if it is the will of majority of the individuals on that street, and go to school or working with the ward office. So we do have different provisions in place. Yes?
So what is 40 kilometers an hour is the speed limit? And
Correct.
Okay, so that's my first question. So Gemini Drive, there's a stop sign at Gardner / whatever that court is. I don't know if anybody knows the name of that court.
Yes.
Yeah. There is no crosswalks at all at that four-way stop.
On the line to stop that.
Yeah, not even one to stop at. People will continue on that stop sign, and then the one at Glennis Court and Gemini. My husband was hit at Glennis and Gemini back in June. So like people and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, right when all the kids were walking to school. And are you aware that people use Zero, Cranbrook, Gemini, Upper Paradise, and to guard as a through street? Yeah. And it is probably the biggest issue because people just fly down there and don't even live in our neighborhood. And like last night we were walking along the Euro and there was like constant traffic. And I would say probably 25% of those people live in our neighborhood. So I don't know if there's a way to prevent that because if we could get people to stop using it on the street, that would probably reduce the traffic by at least 50%. It's a huge
So I just hold on a second. So Christine, are you taking notes just because some of the things?
We're recording it right now. I'm recording it.
Oh, you're already getting
Yeah,
some
so I
of
can
the
take
locations.
that from the recording.
So again, anything that's being asked this evening, I wanted to confirm was being documented somehow so that we can take it away. We can assess it, go back to the ward office and provide an update with regards to the concerns being raised, whether it's the painting on the street. If there's an infiltration situation, obviously being the street, we'll have a look at it.
Yeah, like it's zero, current, like that little bit of scramble, and it's both directions, like people coming from the lake that live along the paradise, they go through the neighborhood and then back again.
Yeah.
So like,
during like rush hours.
yeah, like it's,
And
I don't like, it's bananas, and like we have lived in our neighborhood for 10 years, we live off of the paradise in Greenfield, and I have never seen a police officer, not once. Enforcing stop signs. My husband has recorded multiple videos of people just blowing the signs.
I've seen police with fully armed cars.
Yeah, so of course it's not.
So this is good feedback, and again, we're taking it down. I've already highlighted the neighborhood to the Hamilton Police Services. Again, I'm just being completely transparent when I say I can be the conduit, I can't enforce it.
But like we could walk our children to school, but we
Yes.
choose not to because it's too dangerous.
Well, we want people out and about, so
Yeah,
that's why I value hearing what's going on, so we can figure out
Sorry.
ways.
Like,
So to piggyback on
Yes.
the point, we live on Gemini and Dillard, so directly across from the softball
That
field.
all that you see is.
So there are about 6 houses only on that stretch that are directly across from the park. And the park, perhaps this was not the case when you did a lot of your traffic studies, is now heavily utilized with the Hamilton Cardinal baseball team, the Mount Hamilton soccer team. There are other baseball teams. So from Monday to Saturday morning, those fields are filled with children who run around the park, who have their parents and their siblings who aren't playing, who are running around the park, who occasionally use a ball in the driveway. We ended up with a lot of balls in our property. And those kids bolt across the street. And where you see it on the softball, it comes out of a curb. And it's the top of 2 curves. So So people come out of the stop sign at Cranbrook, Glamis.
Just make sure I have right here, you're talking this.
Yes, right there.
Okay.
And so there's a stop sign at Gardner, and there's a stop sign at Glamis. And people slow down at those two stop signs, and then they speed up. Because they go from a 30 to a 40, and I know what happens, you see the 40 and you go, oh, I can go 50 or 60. So by the time they pass the softball diamonds, they're traveling between 50 and 60. Or at least that's how fast it appears that they're going. They're certainly not going. And so we watch these kids, and I am worried that one day some kid is going to get schmucked in front of my house.
Yeah, and listen.
And it's complicated by the fact that because there is not parking dedicated to the park, all of those parents.
So where they're parking on the road?
They park on the road, there's no rush for them to park, right? So the sight lines are already prepared, and you come around those corners, and you legitimately would not be able to see a small child or a dog or an adult if they were to come out and cross. And as Nika said, or not, and when you walk at night, you can
So
see.
we're documenting the parking concerns with people parking there, because we'll have to take that away.
With regards to the check, I can have to go back out and check that specific area. I don't have any issue with them going back out to do a study check.
Can you say what the industry standard is? Like, is it a percentage of the cars
Yes,
that
so
use during the day
yes.
have to be
No,
above a
it's-
certain percentage?
Yeah, so it's 85% over the, so it's 15% over the posted speed limit. So when we're recording like 17,000 data points, because that's sometimes, you know, we did a recent one, we collected like 17,000 points that we analyzed. We're looking for the 15% above the 85th percentile. That's what we're looking for, to see how fast they're traveling.
I can't do that math in my head, I don't remember.
Well,
If the speed
it,
limit's 40, how fast do 15% of the drivers or greater? How
Well,
they travel?
what it's doing is anybody traveling over 41, it's.
Okay, so there's
Yes.
no like.
No, no,
There's
so,
no Wi-Fi.
no, so, yeah, so anybody driving over 40 is being captured in that 15%. And then anybody who is 40% or below is what we're capturing as well. And the industry standard is that if 85% of the motoring public are driving the posted speed limit or lower, we are not seeing it as being warranted related to the speeding matter. That's the industry standard that we follow. It's a guideline, all municipalities follow it, but we'll have more about that coming forward to council this year, because we've got some questions from council on that matter. So, but with regards to us checking the subdivision and that stretch, we can go out and check it again, I don't have any issues with that, and with council. Yes?
It's not only right there at the baseball diamonds, it's all the way down. So last Wednesday night, there is soccer that goes on in Gilkson Park, and we were walking, and so I live on Gardner Drive, which is in between Glamis and Cranbrook there. So we were crossing, going with the flow of traffic, because you can't cross any other way. That corner is almost blind. The corner house has hedges there. And I've watched cars get hit on our street because people come off that stop sign on Glamis and they are doing like 60 or 70. And nowhere to light, there's two houses in between Glamis Court and Gardner Drive. So coming off the stop sign, we're doing 60 or 70. Cars are being hit coming off Gardner Drive. And last Wednesday night, a car door opened and I watched a kid get out and almost get hit because the car was doing probably 60 in a 40 zone trying to go to get to their soccer game. So that whole stretch needs to be, in my opinion, reevaluated because it's just a dangerous road and that's what we're all on.
And as they're going through them, they look. Yeah. And they don't honk like more nuts, and they just.
So I need selective enforcement from the Hamilton Police Services
And then
to help
they
you.
sit there, they're visible.
So,
You got 50 or 60 years, whatever we do here, will tell you, without enforcement, you're wasting your time. How can we get it right? We've got to do something. I have on very good authority, there are 3 officers at any given point, 3 who are assigned Hamilton citywide. Grimsby to wherever you go the other end. Three who are assigned to enforcing traffic.
Yeah.
Not traffic
No, I get it.
Three.
So,
How do we get more?
to speak to, so the frustrating part here, and Brooke, I did see your hand up, so I'll get back to you, and I see your hand up, so I'll get back to you. The hard part here is we're talking with transportation staff and parking staff. And the one thing we cannot do as a city council or staff is change driver behavior. So people that don't stop at stop signs are not gonna stop at stop signs if we put speed limits. They're not going to. They're never going to. You can yell at them. You can let me finish. I'll get to the speaking. So it's very difficult for us to get the people to drive that live in your neighborhood, your neighbors, to drive the way they're supposed to. Yes, enforcement would help. When we talk about enforcement with the police, we have a traffic unit that specializes strictly in traffic in the entire city. I believe there's 18 officers that cover the entire city for traffic only, the traffic safety unit. Then we have our regular beat officers that work the mountain, the ones that work downtown, the ones that work eastbound Stony Creek, and the ones that live in Dundas and Flamborough. What I can tell you is the reason we're seeing less and less cops in neighborhoods and just doing patrol is because they get called away to calls this city was never used to dealing with. And it's not what residents want to hear. It's not things people want to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. Because at the end of the day, if you read, Chief Purdy just put a letter about gun violence in the city. So I went on a ride along with the police. Got to the station at 6:30. By 7 o'clock, we're on a call. Someone trying to commit suicide. They're able to talk her down. There was 5 cops that went there. We all pulled off from one area. From there, we went to a B&E on Scenic Drive. From there, we went to a missing person on East Town. From there, we went to a drug overdose of a 34-year-old woman in a basement apartment. It's now 11:30 a.m. That was the first 5 hours of my ride along. As these things are happening, those officers all have to leave. Then they can't release the scene until a paramedic shows up. So I think the hard part for people that lived in the community a long time, myself who grew up on Upper Horning and moved into West 25th and Delmar and all those areas, we see regular police in the neighborhoods, patrolling neighborhoods, making sure they're in a high spot where they can see people not stopping so they can ticket them and provide that enforcement. We don't have the resources to provide enforcement in the neighborhood. Not the answer you want to hear, not the answer I want to hear. But unfortunately, with the rise in crime and the rise in demand and the rise in calls, they got to prioritize. And a resident calling about someone not stopping at a stop sign, it's a priority 4 call, priority 5 call. And their list in their car has got 200 calls. And I'm not making excuses for the police, it's just reality. We need more police officers, in my opinion. The traffic safety unit, make it bigger. Maybe we need more police officers strictly focused on neighborhood traffic. That comes at a cost, right? So, and again, I'm not saying there's ways to stop people from not stopping. We can find ways to try to get them to stop more, but we will not eliminate bad drivers just with the stuff that the people up here are going to be able to implement. But if we can make one more person stop, I think we're a safer community for them, in my opinion. So, Brooke?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm curious about your relationship with the board, the Catholic board, and the information you have to guide your traffic flow within our neighborhood. I'm a resident of Gilkson. I'm a mom of 2. I'm a big fan of active transit. And I don't know that active school transit, children particularly, and understanding the flow of children flowing through our community, which by the way, we love baseball at the park, we love soccer at the park, we love the park, so I don't want to ever lose that. But what information do you have about our school community that's guiding these traffic changes? Because I feel personally as a mom in the neighborhood, that's the biggest disconnect is our children. And understanding that Riddell has 5 pedestrian access points, all well utilized. It also has multiple bus stops. It has a bus stop at Gemini and Glen Air for the Catholic board and not one safe pedestrian crossing
for those children to access the bus stop.
And the French board is right.
And the French board. So like, what's the relationship with the board? What information do you have about Riddell, and how are you using that information to make our streets safe?
So I can start out. I mentioned that we do have a small group that does work with the school boards. And we're starting more and more, as fast as we can, to do school-specific studies. So we actually have a group that goes into the schools and talks to the teachers, we send out surveys to the parents, where do you live, what are the walking routes to school. Sometimes they even get kids to draw what's in their mind in terms of maps on how they get to school and where they see the pain points, which is extremely useful. So I think we've done probably 30 or 40, 50 schools. I checked before this meeting, and we've not done that deep dive analysis for Riddell yet, but after tonight, we'll definitely put it on the list. There's also a group, you may or may not have heard of them. And then I should say, all that information is then put over to Carolyn's group in transportation operations and safety to look at some mitigation measures. You may have also heard of a group called Daily School Group. They're doing a lot of good work. There's a pilot in Ward 9, Councillor Clark's ward, has been very successful, where they need to do an even deeper analysis of where kids are walking, what some specific mitigation measures. They view it from the perspective of kids walking to school should be about as easy as it is getting on class and you know your route and you know it's safe. So there is a lot of work being done. Like I said, we can't do it fast enough.
A follow-up question though, this study you posted, what consideration was given to student and vehicular traffic during school hours during that study, which is a major contributor to a lot of the concerns running through the study?
So as part of the Complete Streets, they, and I can confirm this, we would have been dealing with the concerns that we would have had on file, and it would have been the pedestrian, access issues getting to and from school. And they likely would have dealt with school boards, they would have had consultations with school boards. We do and we will continue to have consultations with the school boards. We had a conversation, Councilor Spatafor and I not that long ago, about dealing with the school board on it. The reality is that we need to get parents away from dropping their kids off in front of the schools and permit them around it, because what's happening is that everyone is in a rush, they're rushing up to school, and it becomes a little chaotic in the morning. We're trying to get that changed, right? It's back to what Councilor Spatafor was, it's a change in process of how people behave, is that everybody is racing to work, or racing to come up for dance, or racing. We want to have it so that they're dropping their kids off and they're walking safely to
We are a program of choice school. We have hundreds of students who don't have children dropped off. Has that been taken into consideration?
I don't know, but Brian, I don't know what's around the school from an OSHA perspective. We'll have to take that back, I don't know. But we do assess around schools, and obviously we want to have less activity happening in front of school and people being safe to walk there. There's buses that are happening there, we understand all the dynamics around that, we'll just have to go back and see what was done.
The Riddell Sports Academies,
Yeah.
okay, so they're finding like all 3, 6, 7, 8, they come from all over the city. Although I don't have the option of possible.
And it's just a huge factor. Like, it goes above line, like, and across the other side of here, like, so you're.
So we're all the way and taking this away and speak to staff about it, but again, between the partnership, we're happy to engage with the school board, understand what's going on, and they play a role in this as well. We need to have conversations on where the buses are gonna be stopping and letting students out. We need to have a conversation about where cars are stopping on the roadway. These all play together, and again, it's the neighborhood dynamics that we need to be assessing collectively. Yes, sir.
Thanks. I guess first off, thanks for coming. I think that's a huge thing that needs to be acknowledged. It's a really impassioned issue, so thanks for hearing us out. I've got a handful of questions. I think it's best probably just to unload them, and maybe you guys can unpack them as you see fit. So I guess first and foremost would be the Complete Streets study. My question there is, for all of the development engineering that's being done within Ward 14, for the Complete Streets study, were any of the traffic impact studies being done as part of those development engineering projects, use to audit the complete street study or cross-examine it in any way? Because I'm sure they would have some findings in this that could be perhaps, and again, I'll just maybe unpack as we go. So that's just one. Another question would be, could you perhaps shed some light on the rationale behind not including the third zebra crossing at Cranbrook and Garrow? And on top of that, could we also shed some light on the rationale behind speed humps, the flexible bollards to help delineate the right-of-way visually, as opposed to through the look and feel of all of our suspension? That all in and of itself, my final, and I guess this one could be a bit more contentious, would be, is there any possibility of the councilor's office chartering a collaborative effort between the school board and Riddell for community living through access during pickup and drop off of the buses?
I can answer the last one. I'm not going to get to the engineering part. I'll leave that to the engineers, which I know our director of engineering is not here. But we are, Christine, on my behalf, is currently working with setting up a meeting with Riddell. The trustee, Becky Buck, is here. She's aware that we want to have this meeting. We want to find a way to hopefully work with Riddell and the school board. Are there possibilities to use their property to mitigate some of the concerns around the school, around drop-off, around pickup? It seems like a pretty easy thing to do with the two entrances they have, and only needing them for very short periods of time for buses to drop off and pick up. The one thing that would be probably the hardest thing to get over will be the liability. I'm assuming Riddell's lawyer is going to come back and say, well, you're going to let buses on here. Perfect. That kid gets off the bus, he gets hit by a car of a parent that wants people to drop off. Kid dies, Riddell gets sued. We don't want you people on our property. I'm giving you worst case scenario. But liability is always going to be the biggest hurdle we're going to face in a partnership between the school board, the transportation company who runs the buses, and Riddell and the city, because the city would be involved in it as well. But I think there's definitely options that we can look at. There's a lot of land there. Again, not all that land is City Hamilton land. Riddell has their chunk that they bought from the school board. The public school board land, it goes further back than you think with Riddell. So even if there's a way to access the back of the school, it's not our land. It's not something that the city would be able to just do. But having a conversation with the school board and trying to move that forward so that they can help with the situation that we have there, those I would say meetings are going to be on there. But again, the hard part is a quick fix. Those options we just talked about are going to take, they're not going to be ready for September, right? So, but there are options that I think we still need to look at, investigate, and hopefully find a way to make it safer for the kids to get to school.
No, I think an appreciative point to that, though, is that I think it's up to the city to make that engagement, because given the opportunity, the school board is likely to not make a move because it's their property, and same for Riddell. I think you need to sort of champion that collaborative effort.
I'll be championing the effort. So
How were Riddell able to build a driveway, entrance, road, whatever we went
Without a stop sign.
In an intersection that was already dangerous. How did that
So
happen?
I'm going to answer one of the comments that came out about the stop sign. The stop sign is supposed to be there. I didn't yell about it. But I did quietly, or maybe not so quietly, mention to the director one day, I think I might have sent you pictures. There's no stop sign there. How the driveway came to be?
It was supposed to be a path. It was supposed to go to the back.
You want to take this one? Brian, I gotta throw Brian under the bus.
He didn't yell.
I thought what you thought, just
He
say.
didn't yell at me, just spoke sternly. Yeah, we did hear feedback on the location of that driveway into the intersection. you may or may not agree, but the philosophy is if we can kind of consolidate things, it's usually safer. You know, we've heard some of the comments tonight about offset intersections and multiple crossings. So, you know, there's a crossing guard at that location. It's a traditional four-way stop as opposed to some offset skew. So generally, should be safer. But we understand the concerns with respect to the stop sign. I hope that's out there now because we did. It's not yet. Okay, I'll have to yell at somebody downstream. That's the responsibility of the developer to put in, so it should be in by now.
Are there going to be 2 crossing guards there?
We can absolutely review that. One of the comments we heard was,
Can we just get the crossing guard director?
was he not showing up?
No, can we just get another one?
Oh, okay, yeah. We continually review opportunities for crossing guards. Ideally, we do, you know, we'd like no crossing guards, but sometimes it's absolutely inevitable, and we take it back and we'll look at this location. There was another location that was suggested at Gemini as well.
The crossing guard is good, it's people that don't use the crossing guard
Yeah.
is the problem.
Is the road being paved? We were told the road's going to be paved along there. Is it being done before school starts or?
You mean for the
In front of
Riddell
them,
development?
Where they did all the
where they did all the
construction.
construction.
It should be completed soon.
It's done.
Yeah,
So
it was-
maybe
last time was
so-
yeah.
At the back, you got your hand up for a while. Go ahead.
Hi, I lived on Greendale for 33 years. Back in the day when my kids walked to St. Catherine of Siena and they walked to St. Thomas More. Now need to plan my day, exits and entrances based on the traffic at my corner. I cannot get out of my driveway because of the cars and the school buses. And there's high density, if you look up there on Greendale Drive, high density with city housing, townhouses, and then there's today's family. High density of people who actually live there, and high density of parents coming and going up and down and up and down. I can't get off of Greendale Drive to get on to Garrow. Sometimes the traffic is backed up all the way, almost back to Cranbrook at the light there, or at the Garrow. It's all backed up. There are so many people trying to exit that high density area. So my only other comment is about the school buses. The school buses do not obey the speed limit. The school buses blast around that corner. They blast up and down Garrow. If I was a kid in one of those, I'd be worried I'd be bashing my head against the window. Like, the driving is appalling. And they're driving past a daycare and an area where lots of children, it's just like, I have these children in my bus and I have to get them off. I don't know what you can do about that. I don't know, maybe talking with the school board about who they contract with.
Yeah, so I just did to the council, that's something as part of the conversation.
For those drivers,
Yeah, we'll raise it with the first.
but to have Greendale Drive, which if you look, like, it's just perfect, it's a hub. To have the school buses coming down that particular road, and I know nobody wants the school buses on the road, but looking at, there's a lot of other places that are less density, more single-family dwelling than that particular corner and the today's family daycare.
Okay, so thank you for your feedback. We're capturing it. These are conversations we're gonna have to have with the school board, the contractor, their routes, and how they're prioritizing and optimizing the routes. So we'll have a few conversations that we take back to discuss with them.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll take that back.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We've talked a little bit about how we can't change how drivers drive, but that's how drivers drive within the existing infrastructure. So I have some ideas that I've heard about it over the years, or I've seen implemented in other places, such as elevated intersections, where the entire intersection is the same height as the sidewalk. It functions a little bit like a speed cushion, but rather than being harsh to drive over, it prioritizes the pedestrian. Even instead of just an intersection, you make a crosswalk, where it's the same idea. It's across the whole street. It's the width of the nice walking pathway, but it's elevated to the same height as the sidewalk. And I was just wondering if ideas like that have been considered before, because I know there's a lot of stuff being tried internationally, but obviously we have regulations and stuff to keep up with.
So I'll start with the raised crosswalk. Manager Mike Fields, who works under Director Carolyn and I, we've worked on putting a raised crosswalk in Ward 14 on, I think it's San Antonio Drive. And the reason for that is the park there, the Mount View Park, never had access from one side of the road to get to the park. So if you're on the wrong side of the road, you literally have to go all the way around the neighborhood to the stop sign, cross at the stop sign, and if you're in accessibility, if you had a walker or some sort of mobility device, you have to take that out. So we're putting that raised crosswalk in so that people can get across the road and access the park. It also works as obviously a speed hump, and it's it's nice to walk across. It's a pathway, and it's visually it'll help hopefully slow drivers down. The raised crosswalk, the raised intersection, I think those are all things that our staff look at. I think one of the hard parts is cost.
Yeah.
And not that, I'm not saying that it's not important, I'm not saying we shouldn't prioritize something like a raised intersection.
Yeah.
But when we get to areas where this area needs to take more, this is more of a priority than this area, that's where the money gets shifted around. There's only so much money, and I know I always get comments, well, you raise taxes, what do you do with my money? So you don't have to say it, I hear you loud and clear. But definitely raised intersections is something that I'll work with staff, and if it's something that they want to maybe have one in Ward 14 in future years, maybe something that can be funded out of my office, but that's the easy part. The hard part is all the stuff that they'll go through from engineering and design and all that sort of technical stuff. For me, I'm open to anything. And if I can fund something like that, so we try it in the area, I'm open to that too if I can fund it. But the hard work and all the important stuff gets done by staff, and then they can bring it forward with a price tag. If it's something that's going to help, I'm all for looking at options.
Quick follow-up, two more ideas was concrete peninsulas that come out into the road, helps narrow the road, which means traffic tends to slow down, might create another bit of a crossing point.
Yeah, these are all great ideas. So even if you want to stay after or send us an email with them. So these are known in the industry, all of what you're talking about. What we need to be working towards is that the current platform, a lot of residential streets and the history around them is they were designed and built predominantly for vehicle.
Yeah.
And it's when we're into doing a road diet, so we're trying to narrow things down, or reconstructing a road, from scratch through engineering design, that's when we can implement a lot of these items that, for example, are then easy to implement with regards to the fact that we're dealing with the wider platform, and again, cost and all of that. They're excellent ideas. The industry, we're in a lot of forums in the industry where these things are talked about. Not just here in Ontario, because we've got weather conditions we need to deal with here, but we're trying to understand what other municipalities outside of Canada are doing to see what is something that we can do here to help with, obviously, because a lot of these issues are preventable, it's not just here, so we're trying to figure out different strategies and techniques, so I can see that in that thing. Go ahead, sir.
Councilor Spatafora, your predecessor facilitated a meeting very similar to this a number of years ago, in which we were attending as president, with the same issues, and we were told unequivocally that there could not be speed bumps installed on Gemini Drive because they impeded the flow for emergency vehicles. And now, given the state of Gemini Drive, you probably don't need speed. But speed bumps started appearing all around, and I'm just questioning the city's policy. Is that actually the case, that they do not install speed humps because they need emergency vehicles.
So I'll let the director answer that question, but I want to make a comment to how you started off. The one thing that a lot of people probably don't know, and I don't understand why they do this, when I walked into office, and maybe some of you were happy about that, some of you weren't, but when I walked into my office at City Hall, my office was empty. The computer is blank, and I have zero information about anything that would have been done prior to.
And as you're saying, we sent numerous letters through the years, we've had
Yeah.
correspondence, yeah.
Yeah, so the only time I can pull that correspondence after, because it's a privacy issue, I don't really understand it, but you've contacted the city, I don't know why, as a councilor, I would have access to it. How I would bring those things up is when you reached out to me for the first time, I'd have to go to staff, and then staff would be able to bring that information back up. In regards to your second question, I don't have the answer. As the director apologize.
Yeah, so with regards to the history, the speed cushion, speed bump, there's a million names. I can tell you, we just brought a report forward to Public Works. So there's been an evolution to the design. And obviously, the type you see more in a commercial where it's like a solid, I'm gonna call it a speed, I don't know if I got the right terminology, hump. They're harder to get over. They're not used throughout the city residential streets anymore. There is a new design. It's got the spacing in between them, and the reason why the spacing is it allows for emergency vehicles to get somehow straddled a little easier to make it through to that. So there's just been an evolution throughout the industry of how that's changed.
We also requested a speed reduction, it used to be 50 in front of our house. And
Is
we
it
were
now
told
40?
at that point, it is now 40, and we were told that would not happen.
Well,
So
Bill
we were
65 came
impressed
first.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
And is there any chance of it being reduced, because it does, like,
It's
so
not
many
considered as
kids.
full.
But,
So
my comment always with reducing speed is, reducing speed doesn't change speed.
No,
It
like-
actually increases the larger delta on the road. So if it's posted 30 and people are driving 50, they're driving 20 over, versus if it's posted 40, which is what people should be operating at, they're driving 10 over. So it gives a false sense of security by doing that. So we assess again through guideline, industry standard on roads that should be lowered. And right now, with the 40s in the neighborhoods and the 30 in the schools, and following the ESC guidelines, what we're trying to do with the technology, we're following standards, and we support what we've got out there
I
right
guess
now.
it would just increase that speeding, you don't do that.
It does, it increases the differential. That's what it
Right,
does.
because then it would warrant those speed humps, because people are definitely going away with 40. Right, so then like, anyways.
Go ahead, sir.
In terms of easing congestion, if we could narrow in maybe 1 day a week target, is there any collaborative effort that can be made with waste management to maybe sort out having trucks starting in the neighborhood at the same time as school bus?
So we'll have to take that back to our waste management group, just because there's a whole division that oversees the waste management. It's a point we'll bring back, and we'll have them follow the word out, because I can't comment on whether they're able to do that or not. I'll bring back some of the information.
We'll definitely ask the director. It's definitely a question we can ask the contractors, if they can make it work with the road. I don't see why, I can't see a driver wanting to be in the school, trying to pick up garbage during drop off or pickup. So they probably welcome it, but again, Director Story could answer that for us. I see you had your hand for a minute, we'll come back.
I was just gonna echo what she said.
No, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I live on Gemini Drive, right across from the baseball diamond as well, right across from, okay, so until the speed cushion is warranted, is there a possibility of having slowed down or something painted on the roads? How many times I wanted to go out with a paint jar, with a roller, and write that on the street, because it's unbelievable. Even at 5:30 in the morning, when I'm up getting ready for work, people are just flying up and down the streets. Doesn't matter what time of the day. So I don't know when your people sat on that road to take a survey.
Just to confirm.
Because I never saw anybody.
So just to confirm, staff don't sit out there. We have electronic technology, just so everyone's aware, we have electronic technology that's out there. We don't have staff sitting there anymore.
The last time I saw it was in July.
Well, well, we have technology that's out there, and it monitors when we have a request, we go out and we do the statistical analysis behind it. But with regards to the speed cushion, I'll speak to the counselor afterwards, and we'll talk about Gemini, and potential speed cushions, and we'll go out and do some other checks on behalf of what we're hearing tonight and working with the board on this. I don't have any issues doing that.
Yeah, because when I'm outside, I'm yelling at people in their cars to slow down. And I get the finger, I get the swearing at me, I get everything. So it's unbelievable.
We'll take that back.
How many people live on Gemini?
Oh, a lot.
That's probably less than.
That's 50 plus one.
There you go, sign the petition.
You're okay?
I won't ever have one in front of my house.
You're okay to have it? What's your address?
100.
100 Gemini.
Okay, so we're taking it away, we'll work with the board office and Christine, and we'll come back with a check on Gemini and what we can do with the board office, based on what we're doing. Okay, go ahead.
Regarding the garbage in front of Riddell, it's picked up at 7 o'clock every Monday morning. So there is no problem with the garbage.
The garbage is picked up at 7 a.m.?
In the morning.
Monday
Or
morning.
after.
Okay.
On Monday.
Yeah, just to add to that, there's actually an issue, I'm not sure what that street is, that goes around by the subsidized housing and the daycare there.
Riddell Drive.
Truck is always coming around there, school buses are always up for Cranbrook, ready to go, quarter to 9 o'clock in the morning. Because I don't come down to Cranbrook, because the school buses are there, and then you got cars on the other side, so you've got one lane of traffic that can totally get through. And then you go around by the subsidized housing, if the garbage truck is coming around, and the school bus is there, and they're all around the same line.
So,
And the whole one side of the street is all parking.
Yeah.
So there's like basically one lane for school buses.
So I just want to confirm, because I heard that the garbage comes at 7 a.m. And then I heard that the bus, what time do the buses come?
Still 8:30. 8:35. 8:35 bus. And then 3 p.m. the buses come at the end of the day, between 3 p.m. and 3:30.
And often the garbage truck is there at the end of the day when we're on bus duty.
It might be recycling, but there is something trying to go through.
One of those trucks.
Something.
And that's when it dissolves into expletives.
Yes.
One last question.
I'd like some clarification, probably from the engineer. The
I'm an engineer as well.
the city's for. The intersection of Cranbrook and Yarrow, where the new, and I mentioned earlier, I don't even know what to call it, the driveway, the road, whatever. Would you please tell me the rules that apply to that? Is it just going to be like a street? I heard you mention a four-way stop. So I know if I come out of my driveway, if that's a driveway, I have to wait until everybody else is out of the way. So could you clarify what the rules will be for that particular?
So there's lots of four-way intersections where one lane is a driveway. That's fairly common. It is planned, it should be implemented by now. As you know, there's stop signs on 3 corners. It's just a stop, like coming out of the driveway facing Yarrow. Those cars will have a stop.
Until, my point is, at 8:30 in the morning, you're gonna have cars coming from all directions.
Have to treat it like any other four-way intersection in the city.
Well, anybody, I've seen hands up like here, where they were. Yep,
Well,
go
I
ahead.
think that is a question.
It's okay.
You're okay. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask you, is it possible to get someone out to clean the weeds of the sidewalk and the road, the curb? Just like part of the agenda here. There's mailboxes, and the weeds, yeah, very good, that's not.
Are you like the 3 boxes of Connection Canada posting ones? So that,
It's very nice, the grass carpet, the baseball line, the soccer, you do a great job. And also with our weed whacker around the trees. Can one just go for the sidewalk or 5 minutes, not cut those? It's a nice.
We'll take it back and look at it. If we'll take it away and we'll look at it. Just to be completely transparent, there's different jurisdictions of who's, like whether that's post versus the city, the diamonds are done differently, but we'll take it away. I oversee the roadway maintenance, I'll ask them, what street was it on there again? Say again? Gemini.
I know that everybody's talking about Gemini. I was in Gardner. I lived in Gardner for 47 years, so the traffic, I've seen considerable change in the traffic. So Gardner, no stop sign. So people who are cutting through, who know that Gardner comes up and around and goes down to that stop sign there, they don't have to stop at the stop sign at glance. And they can fly up there, especially prevalent at night time, around supper time when people's coming home from work and in the morning. And also very early in the morning too. People are using that because Stone Church and Gardner they're like highways compared to what they used to be. So they are. And so if you're going to put speed bumps or whatever, no problem with them. But if you're thinking of putting them in Gemini, they need to go into Gardner because the people are going to come Gardner and down to another.
Yeah, that's a little bit of it, right? You put speed cushions on one street and then they find another street to go, and then before you know it, it's a massive cascading. The entire subdivision has it, so, yeah, okay, we've got your streets down, we'll take a look at that. Go ahead.
Community safety zones, the
Yes.
signage, what comes with this community safety zone and why currently is it just in front of the school? And is there an opportunity for it to be expanded if it comes with extra paint, signage, watch for kids?
So we are regarded by the legislation around community safety zones and automated speed enforcement. So there's requirements that we need to be, obviously when we designate something through a bylaw, there's certain things we have to be hitting. So community safety zones go in high, school, park, areas where there's a lot of pedestrian movement. So I can take it back to find out the limits, unless you know where I don't know the limits of the community safety zone on where they can go. We bring it through a bylaw, we'll set the limit. But I don't know if there's a full extent. So to put it in front of residential homes, that's not right now under what we can do. We put them again where there's retirement homes, parks.
Daycare?
Where there's a lot of, obviously, and then once they're deemed a community safety zone, it allows for enforcement to come in and the fines double. So if a police officer pulls you over in a community safety zone, your fee will be double. In a community safety zone. So that's the value of having them, but you need the enforcement. So where the additional layers coming onto it now, the automated speed enforcement. Having the automated speed enforcement out there, you can only put them in community safety zones. You have to be obviously done through a bylaw, which you're doing through the city. You have them out in your area. The machine goes out there and then it records the license plates of those going over a certain operating speed on the roadway and they're issued a ticket. So again, these are just additional tools that just keep on going into the toolbox to help with all the matters we're dealing with on the roadway. It's a good question.
I heard you about the daycare, so.
Yeah. I just want to,
He's had his hand up, I don't want to get mad at him.
I've been a resident in Greyfriars Drive for over 50 years. At the present time, there's only one way out of Greyfriars onto Galway. One lane that I can take at school drop-off time and pick-up time. There's cars parked on both sides of Greyfriars, right up to the stop sign. And even to this very night, there's cars parked right at the stop sign. I've called every councillor who's been in office since 40 odd years. I've called them, and you know the answer I get? We can't do anything because it's in a school zone. We can't put no stopping signs, we can't put no parking signs because it's in a school zone. 40 odd years of these replies from you councillors, from bylaw and whoever.
Well,
I don't think you're going to change it tonight.
I'm not going to change it
Carefully
tonight.
honest, I don't think you're going to change it tonight.
I definitely can't change it tonight, but what I can tell you is, I've only been the counselor for a year and, I don't know, not 2 years yet. So, I'll take that back, I'll look at it. If you don't believe me, staff will tell you I'm the biggest one of the biggest pains in the ass they have down there. Anything a resident brings to me, I have no issue bringing to staff, and I have no issue fighting for a resident. So I don't know that because it's a school zone is the only reason why there has to be parking on both sides.
So, you want no parking on Garrow or
Greyfriar.
Greyfriar? No parking on Greyfriar.
And as I said before, one lane going out and you're on the crown of the road in Greyfriar and you're turning right onto the crown on Garrow. There's cars parked on Garrow there. So if there's a car coming down Garrow waiting to get into Greyfriar, it's a bottleneck here. No car can get out, no car can get in. And that's been going on for years. And if you guys can't see this, after all your inspectors are coming up here and doing your study, hey, it's a bad show, that's all I can say.
Can I just make a couple of comments? So, thank you, I appreciate this. This is my area where I live and I work. So I usually walk to work and I tend to walk with the kids. Couple of things I noticed, the crossing guard where he parks his car is right at the corner of Cranbrook and Garrow. So even the bus, I watched the bus one day trying to turn and his car is there and he'll park there the whole time while everyone, not a good to park, right? Where everyone else is just dropping off and leaving. What this man is saying too, and it's a resident, not school, they're at Greyfriar and the park right at the intersection, so you can't get in or you can't get out if somebody's coming, so it's always, maneuvering that. But yeah, so on my street, you park on one side, from the 1st to the 15th, from the 16th to the 30th, and then you park on the other side. I don't know if that would alleviate anything, but just the streets are narrow. So going back to the baseball and soccer, so I'm coming home, my drive sometimes. But coming home, it's all the parked cars, so it's maneuvering, right? It's maneuvering, and then you get people speeding. But it's exactly what you said, you can't control the way people drive, you do your best, but Saturday morning, someone's speeding down, and that's it, they're going to the link, they're trying to get there faster than some church, and if the link is something's going on there, oh my gosh,
And just to talk to the parking.
One more comment, we talked about police officers, and so unfortunately my neighbor passed away a couple of weeks ago. There was 3 police cars there all day. They're waiting for the corner. I don't think you need 3 police officers there. They could be some traffic.
I won't comment on what the
No,
policy is.
I know, but just I felt they needed 3.
Yeah, and they're all legislated by the province,
Yeah,
but again, I won't get into their policies. What I'll say on the parking front, and I've had this, I've done this in other parts, in the Chinook area, I went out with Manager Joanne Starr, who works under Director Lonzo, and we just walked the neighborhood. She'll walk the neighborhood with me, and, we'll look at areas that maybe the signage needs to be updated. In this area, we were looking at signage because Chinook Hospital used to be there. So we're just making sure that the signage now makes sense with what's there now. We went from a hospital to residential units, let's make sure all the parking signs and the limitations make sense. So that's definitely something that I have no issue doing with Brian or Joanne to walk the streets in Greyfriar and make sure that if we do need to do only parking on one side, we do it. You've been waiting a long time.
I just have a question about your traffic data point survey. So I know the speed reduction happened just over the last couple of years. Was that done before or after the 50?
I think the 50 went out last year, and we did a more recent, we get requests for the area quite a bit. Just trying to see. So we did a check on Gemini in 2023. So like I said, we can go back, we're gonna go back and check.
Oh yeah, that was really my follow-up question. The other thing is that, so with
there are much like a lot of blocks. So, just wondering, what's not fair or does that survey bring up the number of vehicles based on the
So you're talking about what we're collecting data on the service?
Yeah.
So as the technology goes down to 16,000 data points, and the speed, what's happening is so I don't. Oh, no, 17,000 cars. When it's something that we
just
well, it depends on the issue. So again, if we're dealing with speeding, we're looking often at traffic calming. And again, what I spoke to earlier tonight is there's tools in the toolkit, that's what I would say. There's different ways to deal with it. So we need to understand the issue. That's why we go out, we take the data points, we assess it, and that's when we assess what is the best process to how we're going to try and deal with the matter. If we're finding is actually not. And if not, we always work with the community to try and do other things like I said, okay, no marketing signs, whatever, digital speed board. If we don't have any issues assisting the community by putting those things out there. If we're doing hard changes to infrastructure, they need to be warranted. And there's, again, the issues getting into road diets, reconstructing the roads. Those are much larger capital-related programs that we have outlook on. So it really depends on the issue. So that's, if you have an issue, which I'm hearing the consistent issue here this evening, but any issue you're having on the roadway, you need to just send it in to the traffic ops or the board office. We take it, we assess it, and we will respond back to you. Again, just, be mindful that we have 25,000 of these we're getting, and we're trying to filter through them as quickly as possible. We're responsive, we give a response in the first 12 hours, and we've got it, it's logged. And we'll come back to the community with what our resolution is, and we always, I meet with the council with frequency, we close in on the strategy for the budgeting and what we're planning to do with the community. So those conversations are all good.
like a lot of, there are some.
Yes, I heard that.
My wife's been in an accident, right? The amount of those calls, and that's through the volume.
Well, the council has the right people here tonight. It's got the parking director and it's got the speed cushion director. So we're going to take it away and we're going to take it away.
We definitely don't have like 50 plus one houses on that street, I would say. So if they
No, wait, no, 50 plus 1%.
Yeah.
So you only need 6 out of 10. Yeah, that's all you need. Go ahead, sir.
I guess just another couple of quick ones. What about consideration for like a collaborative effort with the police to do like an unmarked paid duty and just let them open season on tickets?
So I have other stuff that's in the background that's happening that I'm not going to speak about tonight. It's not approved by council, but under Vision Zero, when I'm talking with Councilor Spatafor and other councilors, there's other stuff that's in the pipe that we're working to do with the police services. So I won't comment on that tonight. But good thought.
Separate to that one, many good diet books out there tell us that it takes 28 days to break a bad habit. So what if we just bisect a few of these roads with some Jersey barriers, still allowing for two-way access for emergency vehicles, etc., and try and break the community of this route fare business?
That would have to be assessed. I'm not going to comment on that. We don't typically come in and barricade roads at all. There's other things I think we need to tackle first before we talk about this.
On Glendale, which is not marked on the map, it bisects Cranbrook and connects to Preston. I noticed that somehow they managed to get 2-hour parking only on a significant chunk of their street. I'm wondering what the rationale was for changing that particular street and only that street in our neighborhood, which has 24-hour park when you will, where you want in ours, and what made that the exception. How we get that?
Almost 100%. It was resident driven. So we have a petition process, not dissimilar to the request for traffic calming. And if you email, I can give you an answer, parking@hamilton.ca, and say we'd like you to review our street. there's different options. Some people like 2-hour limit where they're annoyed by outsiders parking on their street. But it has some disadvantages in that if you have a family over and they want to stay longer than 2 hours.
I can't comment on the
Yeah,
vision
so-
of 2 hours, specifically just more how they got it changed.
Yeah,
and
we
what
went
rationale
through
is.
an initiative by a request to parking and then a petition process if it was
And
changed.
so the various parking options, in case you're interested as a community in pursuing them, we could go from parking all the time to like a 2-hour parking, to no parking, to permit parking. Are all of those options available to a community like ours, or would you say no to some of them, yes?
Generally, they're available, but we would work with the residents to kind of explore the pros and cons of different options, because sometimes it's careful what you explore.
Yeah.
Sometimes parking also helps calm traffic because cars have to kind of negotiate. But we can definitely listen to the concerns and maybe recommend some different solutions.
Thank you, I was just curious.
We just had a regular one many times, like people accessing the park and not able to actually exit, and then when you call bylaw, which has 4:30, no one can help you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, based on a survey that was done a few years ago on the traffic of Gemini, do you have a time of the day that was completed? Is it midday or in the morning or in the evening? How do you rate these? What time of day?
So typically when we're out doing our data collections, it's out for 24 hours. And we're trying to capture AM and PM peak period, so, we want to try and, we're out there collecting data all the time, but we're really looking at AM and PM peak period to see what's happening when people are leaving in the morning, lunchtime, dinner times.
Three times in a day?
No, it's we collect data across 24 hours, but we generally are wanting to understand what's really, the peak period is when most of the activity is happening out there, but we're collecting data so we know what's happening throughout the entire day. So we can see if someone's speeding like at 2 o'clock in the morning and it was a one-off, it's an outlier. It happens. We can see, what's happening at 12 lunch and someone's going to have lunch, but we can see all that just based on the stats we've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most of our traffic, from what I can see, I live at 135, which is just up the corner, near Upper Paradise. People blow through there with 40 or 50, four-way stop. Big heads there, so somebody's going to get hurt. But in the late morning and afternoons, it doesn't seem to be too bad as far as traffic. But it seems to be in the morning, people are going to work, coming back in the afternoon, going over to the building, coming back.
Yeah.
Later, somebody's going to get hurt.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
So I live in Glamis, there's a couple of us here tonight. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but on our court, I know people don't use their driveways, which I think is okay in the summer, but in the winter, we are very low priority for getting plowed.
Yeah.
So I think there's 3 of us here at the end of the court, I've been snowed in, but also every morning, when the garbage comes, especially in the winter, I watch them struggle to get around because people can park at the end of the court, within that turning perimeter.
Yeah.
So, is that, especially in the winter where we don't get plowed and you have people parking on both sides.
And there's only that one strip in the center.
Yeah.
So when the plow comes, he can only do that strip, he can't do the sides. And then when people shovel, they shovel onto that strip that the plow did come, and then you're dealing with all over again.
That's something, again, if you email,
You can
you can email the office and say, maybe it's something that we ask Brian and his staff to look at where from November 15th to April 15th, there's no parking. April 15th to November 15th, you can park. And is your street been redone yet?
No. On that note, are they fixing the sidewalks? Because
Yes.
it's
Well, the
very.
ones that are damaged. The ones that are damaged, they're all damaged. The ones getting redone.
Thank you.
Yes. There's
I
a bunch of roads
want a
getting.
pond in front of my house.
Well, they're fixing the roads, so the pond better be gone when they fix the roads.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, because she's mentioned about Riddell and the changes that have been made to it, and it's not going to have, I think it's accessible housing on it. a lot of people park there after hours. Is Riddell still going to allow that, or are they think because that, in the summertime, will bring a lot more parking or traffic into the streets, like Gardner up that way, Kiwanis as well, people looking for, so that could be a nightmare. It's a nightmare as it is. I don't know what would happen if they do anything that's going to take away that parking that people use.
So currently, there is no agreement with Riddell to allow parking.
Right.
So when the whole sale to Riddell happened long before I was the councillor, if you look at the report, there talks about Riddell working with the community to allow parking. So I asked Christine to go to the clerk's office, bring that report up, and tell me what happened with that report. Did they come up to an agreement that Riddell has to let people use their parking? And when we went through our legal department, there's no agreement between Riddell and the city that Riddell is going to allow anybody in the community or visitors use their parking. What I know from now when I met with Riddell, at least to me, they don't complain that people use their parking. When I go to Gilkson Park, they don't know it's me, but they haven't complained. I'm sure they probably do complain. I'm sure they don't like it. They don't complain. But there's really, for them, if they call bylaws private property, Brian, what can they do on private property?
But now they have that housing, right?
Yeah, but the housing didn't take away parking, right? That was greenfield.
No, yeah, the people used to park up on there, up on
Oh, on the
the
grass,
house and
yeah.
all around there, so.
Yeah, well,
We can enforce private property as long as we have everything in the field.
We're gonna have a lot more, you think parking's bad in the summer for the people driving on the buses. And what's that street road coming up to Gardner, like that's a nightmare, you don't even go away from your car on your
Emergency
soccer
vehicles
days or
are
soccer
because
days.
they don't park on those
So
spaces.
it's going to be absolutely worse.
And I guess that would be the difficulty with parking, because like we said, we want to let people access the park, but at the same time, we want to be able to use our neighborhood while people are accessing the park. So I think when I go on my walk with Joanne about parking, might not be popular to remove parking from one side. Again, it's a catch-22. You have parking on both sides, people are going to speed a little bit less. You take parking off one side so that, people aren't blocking it in, so you feel like you can walk around your neighborhood, now you're going to have more space for cars to speed. The best thing is once we review the parking, if there's restrictions we can put in certain areas like Glennis Court, and then there's areas where maybe we need to take parking away, like those through streets you're talking about, so that, your driveways aren't blocked. Until we review the whole area, what the parking restrictions are, and then we come back to the community with what those restrictions can be lifted or added, to make it better for the community. So, yeah.
Well, it was brought up already. What's the process to get a crossing bridge? So, talking to sport. Most people's times when we're bringing our kids to pick them up.
Yeah, and again, Brian handles our crossing guards. I was just asking about that. So right now, I would say we're still short 10 crossing guards across the city. And the average age of crossing guards has hit 73 years old. So when you think about it right now, I would love to have 2 crossing guards at Garrow and Cranbrook. But we're already short 10 where they need a crossing guard. So we need 10 more, and then we can look at adding more. So the difficulty around crossing guards is not that the city or I don't believe they're necessary, it's we don't have the resources to add crossing guards. So if there's anybody in the area that...
We can review that location though, and at least give an indication of does it use it. It connects to, I'm sure it's a good desire, like, yeah, so I've already had to fight with staff and don't put on the review. No problems with anything like that, at least it's me.
I know it costs money, because when it goes to our smokes, there's the flashing lights. You press the button and the lights flash.
What location?
That would keep it going.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so there's, Brian will take it away and look at it for a crossing guard, and we can take it away and look at it, whether it be a PSO
school zone west along the M9, it currently ends at Lions Court. So that creates a more drive, unintended, to lower speed zones, et cetera, because right now it ends before there, doesn't take into account that the buses stop in front of our house.
Yeah, I can take a look at it, but the community safety zone only is as good.
Oh, yeah, we're talking about the school zone, it's not community safety zone, we're talking about the actual school zone. School zone.
Yeah, I can have a look at that, yeah, that's fine. We'll take a look at that. Yes.
I live in one of those community safety zones, and all it does is means they're more over the speed limit. They haven't slowed down one little bit. They fly down there, the buses do. I agree with the statement, I'm surprised kids don't hit the roof. It's a problem. I did have a question, and I did send it to your office. What kind of fencing is going to be on the new Riddell situation? Is there any plan to fence the parking lot? And in specific, run a fence from the southern edge of Riddell up to this they do now. So is there anything about fencing?
So currently, there was, the site plan required planting and fencing. Unfortunately, I wasn't overly thrilled about the fencing because it's wrought iron fencing. So for me, it's great for not being able to go through. A little concerned about privacy, both ways. Looking into the school with people in the house and students invading on the privacy of the people that are living in the house. So it's a two-way street for me. It's not just, I know everybody here is more concerned about the students, but the people that use Riddell, the people that are going to be living at Riddell, are just as important as the kids. So I'm not big on the wrought iron fence looks good. The trees will definitely help eventually with privacy. But I've asked our engineering department to go back to Riddell and ask if we can put just a wood privacy fence. So you can't see out and you can't see it.
The entire.
Yeah, behind the entire row of houses.
All the fence posts are in already.
For the wrought iron?
They're all same.
So.
Are they aware of, I mean, you know what happens for vacuums, like, I'm scared for that.
It's a hard conversation because what Riddell was able to do with that piece of property for the people that are going to use it is amazing.
Yeah,
right? And then just like when I get emails from our park staff telling me we're shutting down the Gilkson bathroom because they knocked the toilet off the floor and the toilet's in pieces. And you know, the other emails I get is, hey, I live in Guelph. It's embarrassing that I came to play baseball in your city. You guys don't even have a washroom. And I got to explain to them that, well, I apologize, someone vandalized the bathroom. So I'm concerned for Riddell. I'm concerned for the residents that are going to be living in those homes because they're, it's harder for them to live that way. It's much easier for us to do that. So, you know, I'm in constant contact with Riddell. I think hopefully it doesn't get to the point where we need to have security cameras and that. I mean, that would be obviously their issue. For me, it was more, I'd like to have some sort of more privacy from those homes to the school. I think it would be beneficial for everybody. So although they did the wrought iron, I mean, it's a good first step to at least get fencing. We can always put another fence. The biggest thing usually with fencing is no one wants to pay for it. So, and city councils, the one thing we don't do is pay for stuff on other people's property. So it'd be really hard for me to go to council and say, hey guys, I need you to support my motion. I'm gonna put a privacy fence on Riddell's private property and I'm gonna pay for it so that the school is protected. We have nothing to do with the school, nothing to do with Riddell. So I know I won't get support for that. That's why I'd rather work with Riddell. If I can do anything with them, a partnership, a collaboration, a sponsorship where I can help, I would still like to see a privacy fence.
So are you going to pursue that?
Yes. Yeah,
Just
we're still.
a big, someone that it is going to affect, being that it's a mastermind in, for both sides, not just for us.
Yeah.
I feel for their personal
Yeah.
space as well, that's something that needs to be.
It's definitely still something we're gonna pursue. I would think what'll probably happen is we're dealing with the architects and Riddell. All those contracts have been given out. The fencing company just went into the fence they knew 8 months ago that they were doing when they've been on the job. So now it's time to go out with the fencing. So, but I'll continue to hopefully be able to put a privacy fence up. Yeah, any other questions? All right. Just don't go anywhere yet. 1 second. 5 more minutes and you can leave. I just want to share one more thing after the director.
Okay, so just quickly, I wanted to say thank you for coming in and for having us here this evening and for the ward office coordinating this and all the work they did to help support us. It's really important when the community comes out and talks to staff about the real issues that you're dealing with and the fact that so many people showed up and talked to us about it. I'm not happy to see that because there's oftentimes we'll go to events and there aren't that many stakeholders there really telling us the issues. So I loved the fact that so many people are so real passionate about obviously the issues happening in their area. So I want to thank everybody for that. With regards to next steps, we'll work with the ward office. It's pretty clear we understand the issues. And there'll be some short-term wins that we'll work with the counselor on between myself and Brian with regards to parking and checking out Gemini. And then there'll be more to come just on, future planning that we'll work with the ward office on. It'll involve more time and more planning, but again, we just wanted to say thank you. Catherine?
And thank you both for being here tonight and explaining sort of how things work. It's I think informative for our residents, and it's good information. Lastly, for me, again, I want to thank everybody for coming and expressing your concerns. I just want to reiterate again, the only way I can help, and I'm not always going to be able to help, but the only way I can help is if you communicate with me. And I welcome even the emails that tell me I'm a moron and I'm not doing a good job. At least I know where you stand. At least I know how far I'm going to have to go to try to get your vote. So, communicate, email us, call us. Most importantly, I would say that the easiest thing to do right off the bat is join our mailing list. There's so much stuff I send out almost every day. Road closures. I get emails from people saying, what's happening? That information is going out. So join our email list. Some of the questions you asked tonight, it's a perfect opportunity to use iMatter. And I understand not everybody here attended the iMatter Town Hall. Some people are thinking, this is another platform that, what's it good for? You can go on there, and the questions you asked me tonight, you can put on there. And it comes to me. And other residents in the ward can comment on your question. Do we need speed humps on Gemini? Everybody who's on iMatter can go on there and say, absolutely we do. Counselor, you're a moron. These things should have been here 3 years ago. I've been asking for this for 20 years. All that engagement comes to me. And I can pass that engagement back through iMatter to everyone. It's easy to use, similar to any other web thing, but it's easy and it gets to me and it gets to the community very quickly. You want to talk about the Cannon protocol? The IQ's on there. You can make your comments known. You can tell me how you feel. You can tell me how it's a problem in your community. It's a good way to engage, not only with me, but your entire community. So look at it. If you're comfortable with it, join. If you talk to the individuals at the back, they can sign you up right now. You get your PIN. It's very secure. And the only reason we give you a PIN is because the information we want to gather from iMatter, we want to know where it's coming from. So it's very detailed from a standpoint that I know that it's Ward 14 residents that are talking to me. And it's not, a bot from China that's just sending data now, that's where I'm making my decision. So Joe's here, Francis is here, we have Dwayne is here, sorry Dwayne. Ward 14 resident, I forget his name, that's going to go well next election. But anyways, give it a try, ask some questions. On the way out, I have business cards, I have magnets. I urge you to communicate as much as possible with me. The sooner I know, the sooner I can try to resolve the issue. Okay? One more thing. So this is an IQ that I was talking about. Should the city of Hamilton make it a priority to install a red light camera on Garth Street at Rhino Road West? This was put in by a resident, not by me. So a resident went on iMatter who's logged in, lives in Ward 14, put this question out, and then those are other residents that would have went in and said yes, no, those sorts of things. So yes, for safety reasons, installing 75%, no installing red light camera should not be a priority because drivers fear fines, may cause sudden stops and more rear end accidents. I think that there are other priorities in Ward 14 at this time. So again, it's a good tool, it's an easy way to communicate with our office, and the more we communicate, the more we'll get stuff done. So thanks everyone for coming, enjoy the rest of your night.